Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's her story. Hello, Ollie. I'd like to remain anonymous. Firstly, thanks for your steady flow of videos. They are helping me with a situation with my mother. Just listening to you tell so many stories and relating is helping me. I'm a 41-year-old married mother of two sons, aged 13 and 15. My husband and I recently celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. Although I struggle with depression and anxiety, I'm a good mom, a good wife, and a productive member of society. I own a small business that gives me some freedom to put mothering above work. I'm a recovered alcoholic and celebrated 7 years recently. I'm also a recovered food addict with 8 years. So now that you know generally who is speaking to you, I'd like to begin at the beginning. I was born in a small Connecticut town during a very bitter winter. My mother says I was born into a blizzard and makes it seem like people almost died because of my birth. You know, you're not the first person that's written in that's been born during a blizzard and has had that same story, and things were blamed that they were born during a blizzard and how people died trying to get to the hospital. I've heard this before. I was a scheduled cesarean section, so my birthday was not my choosing, but I never brought that up. She loves telling the story about how broke her and my dad were. How when it came time to pay the bill for my birth, that my mother made like she was handing me over, holding me out to the billing lady and saying, "You can keep her then. I can't afford that." She talks about it like that is funny, like she was calling them out on price gouging or something. But when I was little, that story really confused me. My earliest memories are of my little brother being born, which makes me 3 or so. I remember being very jealous of how nice my mother was to him. It was confusing because at the same time I loved him dearly. I remember a little before grade school, except one event, that I recently contacted my childhood best friend just to confirm. She in fact remembers the same event. Here it is. My friend, who I'll call M, and I were about 4 or 5. Neither of us can remember exactly how old. My mother and her mother were friendly as they lived across the street. M's birthday was coming, and my mother had told me that M's mom had bought M a Cabbage Patch Kid. I loved the dolls and would have loved one as a gift. I was so excited. I told M about it. I was wrong. I was 4 or 5. So when M was at our house opening our gift for her mother, my mother brought up the doll, and M must not have been a very good actor at that age, because my mother told her to leave and proceeded to pick me up by the hair and throw me across the room, screaming, "I told you. You told her, didn't you?" Well, yeah, I'm 5. You know, they beat you for being a child, and that's why they do it. My mother would love to do that shit to me. Grab the hair grabbing, the hair pulling, the throwing you across a room for things that they set you up for. They set you up so they can beat you up as a child. Well, what do you think's going to happen? I don't remember what happened from there. M says she remembers hearing screaming and looking back and seeing me thrown by my hair. My mother does not remember this event. Oh, bullshit. They remember it. They remember it just fine. Funny, they can remember every event against you, right? But when it's on them, it never happened and they have no recollection. Suddenly they can. I don't remember. That event sticks out, but the rest of those years before school are vague. I remember being in my room a lot, crying a lot over what a terrible person I was. I remember waiting for my dad to get home and spank me. My mother would say, "Wait till your father gets home," all the time. My dad would do it, then he'd cry. I remember my mother threatening to call the baby truck. She described it, the baby truck. With me, it was Boys Town. They were going to send me to Boys Town, where I was going to be raped again. Raped was always, I was being threatened with rape as a child. Oh, God. Crying, screaming. Oh, I can't. I can't with these people. I'm going to have to make another video after this one explaining what this, because there's more to my own story that I found out yesterday. So you had the baby truck, I had Boys Town, where I was going to be held down by the big boys and raped. I don't know why it's not even funny. I don't even know where I'm at this with this woman anymore. I don't. Threatened with rape. He would threaten me with rape. Holy God. Damn. That was all her. That was all fucking her. Threatening to call the baby truck. What was gonna happen? You know, they just horrify us as children. She described it in detail as a big truck, just like a garbage truck that squishes down the trash. But for bad babies and little kids, I can't even. Like on any other day, I guess this wouldn't be like, holy God. Sociopath. Does the fucking old cunt remember any of this? Probably not. Probably not. The sickest thing they can imagine, huh? So with you, the baby garbage truck was going to come and squish you to death. I've always had a vivid imagination, and I know that story put a visual in my head at that age. That was horrifying. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I feel like she didn't respect the fact that I was too young and naive to know the truck didn't exist. Jesus. It's just mean. No, she knew at the time you thought it existed. Otherwise, why would she have said it? She still laughs about it. I bet she does. But that sucked for me back then, honestly thinking about any time they would come for me. I remember her showing me the movie Mommy Dearest, same here, and telling me I was lucky that's what her mother was like, yep, which I now know was totally inappropriate and would never show a kid that age a movie like that. Oh, no, she rewound it on the old Quasar VCR, the wire hanger scene. See? Next time you think I'm bad. Thanks. My father's threat was military school. So, my mother, when I was a child, when I was a little kid, it was threats of being held down and raped at Boys Town. And then as I got older, It was military school. And then my mother, they're going to rape you anyway at military school. Everything was rape with her. Oh, God. I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad she's dead. I'm glad she's dead, and I hope she suffered. Once I was old enough to realize there was no Santa Claus or baby truck, she threatened me with military school. Oh my God. That terrified. Like, it's a fucking pattern of behavior. It's a pattern. They just pick their fucking patterns, man. That terrified me. I only really remember being in some kind of trouble, and Em confirmed that too. She remembers always missing me because I was often grounded. By kindergarten, there were people in the neighborhood I wasn't allowed to be friends with because my mother didn't like them. It was actually more because my mother was and is a drunk who can't seem to behave like a civilized human when she drinks too much. So these people didn't like her, of course. So you got a drunkie the fuck clown too. Well, it makes sense. I mean, our stories are pretty mirrored here, Anonymous. Drunkie the fuck clown lives. Holy shit. I hereby bequeath the name Drunkie the Fuck Clown from my dead mother. It still stays with her in death. But there needs to be a living representation, and I hope if your mother's still alive, I bequeath Drunkie the Fuck Clown onto your mother. I remember being terrified the first day of kindergarten and making a scene. She had no sympathy, and eventually I warmed up to school and quite liked it. My teachers were nice, and Em was in my same grade. I struggled to learn, and my parents were called in. My mother says they tried to tell her I was retarded, but I don't think I believe that. Anyway, I never told her because I was afraid. Much of the time in class, I daydreamed. I knew I was supposed to listen and I wanted to, but I would constantly fade out. I had the same issue. I had the same fucking issue. I couldn't focus in school. That's not on you. That's not on me. That's on the fucking teacher. I was 4 at the time in kindergarten. You're 5 or 6, I guess. That's the teacher's job, to focus you. If a kid is daydreaming and looking out the window while the teacher's giving the lesson, that's on the teacher, not on the kid. My mother told me that she got, when she went to the first parent conference and my artwork wasn't up, they said, the teacher said, my teacher said, I don't know why he's in this class. I don't know what he's doing here. I can't hang it because he didn't even know how to follow instruction. And my mother came home and accused me of being a retard. I was 4. The reason why I didn't know what to, because I never had colored before. I had no crayons as a child like that. I didn't. There were no coloring books. There were no crayons. There were none of that until after I got into to kindergarten and first grade. Until my brother came around, really. I was put in the kindergarten, no nursery school, just with her, No interaction whatsoever. I hadn't so much as colored. That's not on you. It's on the teacher. I would look right at the teacher, be watching their lips move, and be off in some other world. Anyway, my parents locked me in the basement and said I could come out when I memorized my multiplication tables. That was the latest of my list of failings, multiplication tables. I have to admit it was effective. I learned them all in what I think was just a few hours. I was always better at things that didn't involve sitting still and listening. I was quite good at drawing by second or third grade and always very creative. My problem is you can't make me sit there and listen to something I don't give a shit about. If it doesn't interest me, you can't get me to pay attention to it. I mean, that speaks more to the way the education system works. I mean, obviously you need your reading, writing, math, your basic fundamentals of society. Okay, but we should be gearing children to certain things that they're gravitating towards at a much younger age than trying to, everybody's got to sit in the same class with the same way. It doesn't work that way. I was quite good at drawing by second or third grade and was always creative. I never had much because we never had money for 1 and 2, but for 1 and 2, I was never tidy enough for my mother. And one day in, I don't remember what grade, I came home to an empty room. A bed, a dresser with underwear, socks, and 5 school outfits and 2 play outfits. That was it. Empty closet. Yep, had the same thing happen to me. All my clothes, just out of nowhere for some fucking offense. I think there was something left on the floor she didn't like, and some fucking offense. I remember walking by my stuff in the basement, but never daring to take anything. It'd be too obvious. She'd said I have to earn it back. But I don't remember ever getting any of it back. Now, Ollie, I was never a bad kid. I know that now. I needed help in areas, but my mother didn't care to even look into my knees. So anyway, I got used to not having, and it served me well. Thanks, Mother. But what you have to understand is while I'm being constantly belittled and punished, both my older and younger brothers can do no wrong. I remember sensing from a young age that my mother must like boys better. There were many times I would faint. It would always be around B, and mostly when he had his friends with him. M confirms the fainting. She remembers me fainting almost instantly once B came into my room. I don't remember that one, but I do remember passing out all the time. I finally fainted on a weekend morning when my dad was home, and he insisted my mother take me to the doctor. She took me to her 90-year-old family doctor, and he said I needed more iron in my diet. She bought me tablets and made me take them for a while. They didn't help. She didn't notice. When I was, I think, 8 or 9, my older brother and his friend tied me to a tree. His friend started putting his hand up my shirt and breathing and licking my neck and face. I didn't understand what was going on. I just thought it was gross, and somewhere that disgust turned into terror because I don't remember anything after the terror struck. At that time, I knew nothing about sex except it was something grown-ups did. I don't remember how I got home, but I remember knowing I couldn't tell anyone. My mother believed every word out of my older brother's mouth. We'll call older brother B. B claims not to remember this event. After that, I didn't go outside anymore. I never realized it was unsafe to, but now I knew Now that I knew, I stayed home. I focused on school, ate junk food, and watched TV on the couch every day after school. My mother never noticed or asked why I stopped acting like myself. B just used my new fatness to pick on me more. Now I wasn't just stupid, but fat and stupid. He loved that. I remember the first time I put two and two together, that my mother was a different person when we had company. I tried to have M over as much as possible. Mom was nice to her, so therefore nice to me by proxy. However, B finally ruined that for me by coming in my room one day while M and I were playing and asking to see our privates. We said no, he insisted, and kept at us until we did. Sam went and told my mother. My mother told her to leave, and I honestly don't remember if B got any type of punishment. But I was brutally punished, shamed, and made to feel like a dirty little girl. I never even would try to defend myself at that age. It was pointless. So M never came to my house anymore, but I lived at hers pretty much when I could. Like I said, I was grounded a lot, but in between. We never had sleepovers, but I remember going over there first thing in the morning. I had a paper route and delivered early before school. Over summer, I'd end my route at her house. We'd play all day. Her mom was nice and mostly left us alone except at tea time. She was from England and served us tea and cookies at 3 p.m. and sat with us. She was a classy lady, and I would practice copying her accent in private. I'm grateful that I was young when I started noticing I didn't want to be like my mother. I remember actually paying close attention to how my teachers and other women conducted themselves. Middle school was hell. By that time, I was considered overweight and pretty shut down. Kids at school were all breaking off into cliques, but I didn't fit into any of them. I think they all decided on their cliques on a day I was absent because I missed the memo. But I always had M. I realize now it's because I was also her supply. I never knew what that was as a child, but after speaking to her again recently, I see she hasn't changed much at her core. When I was asking her for her memories, she seemed really focused on making sure nothing was her fault. Not that it was, but it triggered memories of my childhood friendship with her. She wore the pants. Gosh, I was such a pathetic little codependent even then. Yeah, well, that's what happens. And you're looking for anybody who'll be nice to you, and you put up with more bullshit because of your parents, what happened with your mother. Because you just need somebody in your life. You put up with anything. When I asked how she was and what she's been up to, she focused on her house, her job, her activities, and vacation. Her husband's job, how amazing her kid is, nothing I couldn't know by looking at her public Facebook page or whatever. To summarize, it's just kind of shallow. She's nice and was a good friend. I mean, she didn't hurt me intentionally or anything, but just very surface level and materialistic in her thinking and motivations. She was eager to help me, though, and to tell me what she remembered. She said it traumatized her, too, some of the things that my mother and B would do. One day in class in middle school, I was writing a note to my friend. I don't remember what I was upset about. I just remember it was to do with my mother. Always was. In the note, I wrote something to the effect I wanted to kill myself. I remember feeling that way a lot. I never really wanted to do it. I just wanted my mother to see how much she was hurting me and be nicer to me. Anyway, my teacher saw my writing over my shoulder and told the school counselor. Both of my parents had to go in. This is the only time my dad ever had to go, and my mother avoided schools like the plague. So I was already in trouble just for that. But when we went home, I got it. For being suicidal. Nice. She started ranting and raving and taking anything out of my room I could hurt myself with. She was threatening to tie me to the bed so I couldn't hurt myself. I don't remember if she did. It was during this time I started stealing their booze. She started cashiering at Kmart part-time. I figured I could skim a bit off each bottle at every opportunity. I stole a Tupperware bottle and filled it with gin, vodka, whiskey, rum, you name it. The plan was to relax. I remember during Red Ribbon Week at school, during learning about alcoholism, and asking my mother if she was an alcoholic because she fit the bill. She got mad and said she had a couple drinks to relax and that it was normal, and it was always made clear that it was illegal for people under 21. But I found myself so stressed out by middle school. I figured I'd better start relaxing early. I'd stay home sick and get drunk. During summers, I'd ride my bike around alone with my booze concoction and my bike mounted in my bike-mounted squeezy bottle. I must have looked old for my age because I'd buy cigarettes from the neighborhood liquor store. My mom would make a huge deal about my smoking cigarettes and get my dad involved. I was always grounded for smoking. When I'd come home drunk and puking on my bike, she would just put me to bed without a word, because she knows what the boozing is about. I remember thinking I was so lucky I didn't get into trouble. I thought I'd outsmarted her, but I realized now I must have reeked the booze. There's no way she didn't know I'd been drinking. But my dad had been sober on and off most of my life. He'd always admitted to being an alcoholic from the time I was old enough to understand. My mother had no problem talking about how my dad hit her one night and how it was decided that night he's alcoholic. So I think my mother didn't want my dad to overreact to my drinking. No, she knew your drinking, your mother was secretly encouraging your drinking. Because your mother didn't want you to have it better than her. And your mother knew she was an alcoholic, so she wanted you to be an alcoholic. I started high school in Connecticut, although I don't remember much except being in trouble and escaping at any opportunity to drink and smoke. Much of the time I'd be gone for long periods of time and she wouldn't notice. She was always plenty busy with whatever she was currently into. As long as I stayed out of trouble, didn't get caught drinking or smoking, she left me alone. By then I'd learned how to keep her at bay. Keep the room picked up, stay away from her. My dad was laid off from his job. He was very depressed and couldn't find work. My mother was miserable with him home. She was always very clear about the fact that she never loved him, that she only married him to get away from her parents. She definitely acted that way towards him. I always felt sorry for him. I knew how it felt not to be among her chosen ones. After many months with my dad at home, they must have both kind of lost it because suddenly we were moving to Arizona. Mid-school year, my sophomore year, they took a trip there to find a house, and by the time I recovered from that hangover, I was headed west. I hated my school just as much, if not more, than my old one. I was still fat, only now I was fat and sweaty. I remember my mom actually feeling sorry for me and taking me to buy clothes. That was rare. I always wore B's old clothes because we were poor, but I didn't know what to wear. My mother always cut our hair herself, and she cut mine short like my brother's, so I never even looked like a girl and felt like an imposter in store-bought clothes, and I was fat. We just wound up arguing because I didn't like the clothes she wanted for me. In the end, I never wore them anyway. By this time, I had become a very good student, getting honor roll consistently. My studies were my life. It was all I had. I got my license and got a job at a fast food restaurant as soon as I turned 16. B had just left for basic training, and my mother was all soggy with selfish emotionality, so she sold me B's car for cheap. I remember being so confused by that, but I realize now I think she just wanted me gone, but I needed a car to get gone. And one day, she looked at B's car just sitting in the driveway. Let me tell you what she wanted. You came home drunk on a bicycle as a child and she didn't say anything. And as soon as you get your license, and she knows you're drinking and smoking the entire time, she knows it. Now she's going to hand you a car. She didn't want you gone, she wanted you dead. I realize now that wasn't her being nice. That was her manipulating me. I joined a women's fitness club, and within a year of spending less time in that house, I dropped down to a perfect size 6. My mother suddenly wanted everything to do with me. She suddenly had money to take me shopping at the mall, but we'd still argue about clothes. She'd said, if you got it, flaunt it, and would want me to wear things that showed too much skin. Just no more than a year prior, I was a fat kid that no one noticed except to oink at or snicker about behind my back. I wasn't ready to be a sex symbol, and let's not forget I'm 16, a child. I was afraid to be attractive because I still thought men were scary and gross, so I was labeled a prude and pretty much given up on again. Let me tell you something. Your mother wanted to kill you when she gave you that car. And then when you turned it around and lost weight, then she wanted to take it to manipulate you anyway. She's going to find a way to manipulate you either way. So you rejecting her, realizing it was a manipulation, but not realizing what the manipulation was, led you to do something where she came in to manipulate you anyway. The narcissist is always going to find a way to manipulate you. Always. Even if they got to change of plans. I had to get a new job because one of my bosses had asked me out, and when I said no, he began making my life hell at work. I got a job bussing tables at a busy restaurant, excelled, and started making really good money. We made hourly plus tips. I had my mother sign off on cutting back my school hours to work more. I had taken so many classes freshman and sophomore year that I had the credits left to earn. So, for the last year and a half of high school, I mostly worked and took 1 or 2 classes. I graduated at 17 with honors, with no friends except T. She was a mean girl with no friends, so she wanted to be friends with me. She got me cigarettes, booze, so I was her friends. She did weird sexually sadistic stuff, embarrassed me, belittled me, but I was still her friend. She had an older boyfriend who apparently her single mom was fine with, but she would try to seduce him in front of me all the time. She turned on porn once. She smoked pot. Just generally tried pushing my limits. She'd take my keys because, girl, you're getting so wasted tonight. So I'd literally be her trapped plaything. At the time, I didn't know what I thought. She was always accusing me of being a prude too, so I assumed the problem was me. She told me senior year she thought she was a lesbian, and if I was too, she'd be down. I thought about all the times I changed in front of her. We met in PE. She made it clear that homophobia was not cool and I was still her friend. Anyway, my shenanigans with her caused me to miss a curfew a couple times, and then when I got my first boyfriend, I accidentally fell asleep at his house one night and didn't get home until morning. My mother kicked me out. B was gone, but she was too busy to get my little brother, who was graduating soon. She was too busy with my little brother, who was graduating soon, to deal with me, apparently, because that was the attitude. Like whatever I did my best. You suck. Get out. Right. The discard anyway. Look, she was trying to get you discarded at 16 with the drinking and the driving, and she still is. She still is. Look, even taking you out, she's probably trying to influence that lifestyle and drag you down and get you killed and get you eliminated. Telling you, that's what she wanted. There's so much more, and my mother's gotten progressively weirder over the years, but this has gotten so long. I think I'll break this thing up. I find it hard to believe that anyone would take the time to read all this, but I really think you will, because you have helped so many others. My reason for writing is I keep deciding my mother is a narcissist and changing my mind. When one of the kids reaches a milestone, I want to call her. I went no contact 2 months ago after she did something I just can't accept. I already been exposed to content on the topic of narcissism and something just clicked. But it's hard. Dad's been dead almost 20 years and she's the only parent I got left. Anyway, I'll pick up my story soon. But would love to hear what you think so far. I don't know how to pay you yet, but I will figure that out as soon as I send this. Thank you for your work. Anonymous. This is what I think. Your father's been dead 20 years. Okay? So now your mother's probably at a point for the last one where she needs you more, but she still wants to destroy you. Anonymous. Your mother's always motivation has been to destroy you. Destroy you emotionally. Destroy you, terrorizing you with threats. And then she would make up all these trumped up things to punish you over. And turn things that should have been things of concern for her, of you talking about suicide, into more punishment. But the one thing she should have freaked out about, the one thing that was going to destroy your life more than anything else, drinking and alcoholism in middle school, she turns a blind eye to. Because she wanted you to be an alcoholic. She wanted you to destroy your life. She wanted you to kill yourself. That's why, knowing you've been drinking and smoking since middle school, she gives you a car, practically gives you a car at 16, knowing you're drinking and smoking, thinking you're going to run yourself dead. And then when you take that, instead, get high, get what she said, hot. If you got it, flaunt it. Is she going to go out partying with you? Or is she encouraging you, knowing you're drinking and you're going to be drinking? She's trying to drive you down. That's all your mother's ever done, is try to destroy you. That's it. Any way possible. So, yeah, I would say your mother's a narcissist, and our childhoods are very, very, very similar. So, I will be doing a follow-up video to explain why I'm on my own stuff, to update what's going on. So, I hope this helped, Anonymous. Thank you so much for your contribution and your story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comments section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.